Hey, welcome. If you are new to the channel, I'm making this pixel art tactics RPG with the Godot Engine. It features non-exploration, multiple playable characters, and a tactics battle system. So recently, I had an idea that I want to add to my game. I remember playing games like Final Fantasy VI and Ni no Kuni. When you go outside the town, you enter an open area that you can explore and roam around. And there are miniature-sized towns, dungeons, and forests, and some areas are blocked until you progress further into the game. This is usually different from playing tactics games like Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre titles, where there's just a set of points you can travel to without roaming around an open area. Although there are tactics games that allow you to explore the outside area, like the early Shining Force games. So since this is my first game, of course I'm going to add more features. Yeah, I know. I'll add the exploration experience to my game where you can freely walk around the open field. Instead of having just a set of points you can travel to on the world map, I'll create an overworld scene that you can walk around when you go outside. First, I need to create the overworld pixel art design, and I've been looking at some games that have overworlds for inspiration. So I think this should be good enough for now, but I'll certainly improve my pixel art designs in the future since I think I'm still terrible at making pixel art in general. For things with animations like trees, I create separate files for those, and that's where I do the animations. I also make them separate scenes in Godot, so when exporting this overworld art, those animatable elements aren't included yet. So for now, I'll add this initial overworld design as a new scene in my game, just to try walking around it and see how it feels. I'm going to add the animated trees around, and let's see how it looks. So it feels like a lot is still missing. Maybe adding some clouds shadows might improve this a bit. I'm just going to add very simple cloud pixel art and do a very simple animation with animation player just to move it from right to left. I think after adding the cloud animations, this looks a bit better now. Although I think it will be better if I use a shader for the clouds, but I haven't done any shaders yet, so that's going to be for the future. Now it's time to add an enemy to the overworld. I'm just going to create a very simple enemy for now that's also very easy to animate. I created some samples until I settled on this one. I'm not sure though if I'm going to keep this one, but for now I just want to try having some enemies in this overworld. So I've created a new enemy scene in the overworld. This scene is a generic one that will be used to create different enemy scenes. It requires a resource data which contains information about the enemy. This resource has properties like level, speed, range, and a sprite sheet for the animations. It also has an export field for the battle scene it will transition to when encountered. And this list of battle units scenes are the ones that will be instantiated in that battle scene. This is similar to games like Ni no Kuni, where you can see one enemy but in the encounter, more enemies will appear. Also, the enemy you see will always appear in the battle scene. So for creating the enemy scene for this little monster, I created a new scene with a root node 2D, added the overworld enemy scene to it, and created the resource data for the enemy, and it will automatically generate the animations. I have this code that I copied from my town character script. I just modified it a bit to work with these simple sprite sheets, but in the future, this will handle more complex sprite sheets like the town characters. But basically, this just set up the animations in the animated sprite 2D node. I also have navigation logic in the town, And since I want it to apply to the overworld enemies as well, I created an interface called iNavigable that has methods for navigating. This is implemented in both the town characters and overworld enemies. Because of this, I can use the script that I made for the town characters to navigate around. There are just different implementations of movements since the overworld enemy scenes are very basic right now. But in the future, this will also change to implement more complex animations. I also added some basic behavior to the enemies so that they will pursue the player when within their detectable range. And once they are close enough, it transitions to a battle scene. I created this sample battle map in the overworld, and this is just for testing, so these are not final. My plan is to have some kind of enemies manager in the overworld to procedurally instantiate on-map enemies and to instantiate the list of enemy units based on the enemy data resource into the battle map when encountered. I have this scene manager which handles switching between different scenes, and I updated it to store the last position of the player when they are from the overworld. Then in my playable character, I just added this bit of code to position the active character at that last stored position when they were in the overworld. So, it's time to demo this. First, I'll update the town. So when you go outside, it goes to the overworld instead of the world map scene. I've already implemented that feature before in my door transitions in town, which I also made a devlog about. So I can already use that feature here in the overworld for transitions. So I'm just going to remove this world map point node because that's the one that transitions to the old world map scene. Then I'm just going to replace it with a draw point node. So I'm just going to rename this to Overworld entry and give it a collision so that when we enter this area, it will trigger the transition logic. So I'm just going to put the matching door ID, town overworld, and the facing direction when the player transitions to this town. So the target scene here is the overworld scene. Then in the overworld, I will put an entry point as well that will trigger the scene from overworld to town. So I'll also use the other point and put it here, add a collision. So that when we enter this area, it will trigger the transition to go inside the town. And the door ID should match the door ID that's inside the town. And let's just make the character to face downward when transitioning to the scene from that door point. And the target scene should be the town. And that's it for the transition between the town and the overworld. So this overworld enemies, it will open up that test battle map that I created before. The exit scene will also be the overworld. So that's the transition between the battle map and the overworld when we encounter the enemy. There's also another battle map that's used in the old world map scene. So I'm just going to update that as well to point the exit scene to the overworld. And then in the overworld, I will also use the door point node to transition to that battle map. So when we enter this bandit camp, it should trigger the battle map. This also works without the matching door point in the other scene. It will just basically switch scenes. So this can be just anything, but for the target scene, it has to be pointed to the battle map. Now let's try this whole thing. Let's start at the town. And then let's go outside. and we should be transitioned to the overworld. So now we can see that the transition works between the overworld and the town. So that's great. So let's just move around for a while to get the feel of the overworld. There's going to be more things that I will add here because right now everything still feels very empty. But I think I like this new addition to my game. I wasn't actually sure if this would fit my game, but I'm kinda liking it now because it gives me the similar vibe to when I play the games that I mentioned before. Anyway, as you can see, the enemies will pursue me if I get too close to them. I'm going to change this logic in the future so that it will be based on their vision. So let's try to encounter one enemy and it should transition to the battle map that I just created for testing. So we can see now that we're in the battle map. And there's not much progress yet in terms of the battle gameplay. So it's very basic at the moment. So let's just finish up these little monsters and we shall get back to the overworld after the reward scene. So we are back in the overworld scene in the same place as before, and you may have noticed that the enemy is still in there. I still haven't fully implemented the whole thing, so this will be changed later once I implemented the enemies manager in the overworld so that it can track the already defeated enemies and when they will appear again. Let's go to the camp in the north and we should transition to the battle scene, the bandits. So my idea is that the battles in the overworld are much simpler than the special battles with the entry points. In the future, the battle units that you have chosen are deployed in the special battle maps. Then in the overworld battles, only a few selected battle units will be deployed, but it will be based on the enemy levels and the number of enemy units that will be instantiated on the battle map. So let's just finish this battle so that we can go back to the overworld after the reward scenes. So the reason I decided to have visible enemies in the overworld instead of random encounters is because I did not really like random encounters in the classic RPGs. I want the non-important battles to be optional, so players have options. If they want to grind, that's okay, but if they just want to focus on the main story and the side quests, that should be fine as well. So the initial implementations are already done and I'll just need to improve these further. I might also do another devlog for that to share a more complex and polished implementations around the overworld. But I think I should prioritize the works on the battle gameplay especially the animations and the arts. So that's probably gonna be the next topic for my next devlog. And that's it for this video. If you want to follow along with my game's development, please consider subscribing to my channel. I try to upload new devlogs about my progress whenever I can. Thanks.